no, California is not Spain. California is wild and crazy and that's what walking the California Mission Trail is. It's wild and crazy, and it's concrete and it's pavement, and it is what it is. It is a beautiful pilgrimage. It's something that we can all do because we can walk. You can get out and just walk today, 3 miles on the Mission Trail, 3 days tomorrow, 3 days the next day. Before you know it, you've really walked the 800 miles.
I'm Damian Bassich, and this is the California Frontier Show, where we take a deep dive into California history and go beyond what you may or may not have learned in school. Today, my guest is Edie Littlefield Sundby. Edie, as far as I know, is the first person to walk the entire length of the mission chain of both Californias, Baja California, Mexico, and the state of California in the United States. And she did it all while dealing with stage 4 cancer. Her story is very personal, and at the same time, it intersects with crucial points in California's history. And as I mentioned, both Californias. So it ties in also really well to what has unintentionally become a series on Baja California here on the California Frontier Show. So, let's get straight into this very moving interview. My guest, Edie Littlefield Sundby, is the author of The Mission Walker, a best-selling memoir, and it's about her journey as the first person to walk the whole Camino Real de las Californias, the Mission Trail, from Baja all the way up to Northern California. And I think you've done more, which I hope we'll talk about as well. Welcome, Edie, and I would just love to know a little bit about the background of this story. I know we interviewed at the very beginning of my podcast, at the first episode, I believe, my guest had walked the entire Mission Trail of Alta California, but you've done them both. So I'm really fascinated to hear, and I know it's a very personal story for you, not just about history or adventure. So, yeah, can you tell us more?
Well, every long walk starts with one step, and what motivates us to take that one step, and what impels us to step forward. And there's usually a crisis in our life. And for me, I'm a walker. And I haven't always been a walker. I became a walker when I was hit by blue sky lightning on some clear day. And that blue sky lightning was cancer, stage 4 cancer. And it was in 8 organs. And it was spread so much through my body, in my liver, my colon, I had a 7-inch peritoneum tumor. It was everywhere. And it was so widespread that in San Diego, doctors did not want to treat me. They just wanted me to have palliative care because I was going to die too fast for having treatment. And lucky for me, I found Dr. George Fisher at Stanford, who said he could not cure me, but he would treat me to the best of his ability, whether I wanted aggressive treatment or none. And basically, we started aggressive treatment that very day that I saw him. And now I've been alive, Damian. I'm still with seedlings of cancer. I have a small cancer, even in my brain, small tumor. But I've been alive now for almost 20 years. Oh, I say that, and I can't believe it either, how enormously lucky I am. And one thing I have discovered in everything, whether it's walking a 1,600-mile mission trail, or whether it's getting through stage 4 cancer and whatever, I've discovered that life is mystery. Life is mystery, and we are all unique. And my ability to walk today, I don't know how far or how long I will walk today or tomorrow. I don't know how long I will live, be it today, tomorrow, whenever. We're all mortal. I do know that walking extends our mortality. And I do know that walking is the best medicine there is. Even Hippocrates said it's the best medicine. And today, Damien, it's the most prescribed medicine in the world. And I always say, hey, take a walk, not a pill. Whatever can help you with pills, walking can probably do better. That said, we need a place to walk. And we need something, a higher purpose. And I think that's why pilgrimages all the way down forever and ever and ever. Life is a pilgrimage. You're on a pilgrimage. I'm on a pilgrimage. We're all pilgrims. It's all a walk of faith, for all of us. And we are so lucky in California to have the old California Spanish Mission Trail in our own backyard. Sometimes it's literally right next to our house. If we live anywhere along the coast from San Diego all the way to Sonoma, you are within a few minutes of the California Mission Trail. And some people started several years ago, a good friend of mine, Butch Briery, putting together a hiker's guide. And actually, I was just reading that, getting ready for the podcast today, a hiker's guide to the California Mission Trail. And I was the 6th person to walk from San Diego to Sonoma on the Mission Trail. And I started 5 months after Stanford removed my right lung. And so I'm very highly motivated to walk, having only one lung. If I don't walk, I don't breathe. And I will just tell you that out along the California Mission Trail, you're transformed. It's a transcendent experience. And it's not just the mission trail per se, it's the walking experience. Our bodies are healing machines. Our bodies are always in the present moment. Our bodies are always there for us as long as we take care of them and as long as we move. And the mission trail in California, be it the 800 miles from San Diego to Sonoma or the 1,600 miles from Loretto to Sonoma, what an incredible, incredible place for a transcendent experience.
So you did this with one lung, is what you're telling me.
One lung. I've had actually 832,000 milligrams of chemotherapy.
Wow.
I've had dozens and dozens of radiation treatments. I've lost 60% of my liver, 10 of my colon, 10 of my stomach, my right lung, and part of my throat. And through all of that, what got me through it really was walking and understanding and the joy of life. And I've always said this, that the fear of death will never save you, but the joy of life and living will. And that's one of the reasons I walked the California Mission Trail, was because it had a significant imprint on me at the time. I was diagnosed and told I only had a few months to live. The first thing I did when I heard that diagnosis and I got in my car, I was all alone. I drove away from the doctor that told me I was filled with cancer, and I hadn't been to a doctor for 20 years. He said I was filled with cancer. And first thing I did, I got in the car, I pulled over the side of the road. And wouldn't you know it, Damien, I pulled right underneath one of those California mission bells.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it. They're every mile up and down the coast, pretty much, San Diego, Sonoma. But they're just trying, my breath being taken away, being shocked, being terrified, really, being numb, like you have cancer and it's all over you and, prepare your family, prepare yourself. And then that mission bell, and when I rolled down the window of my car and the breeze and it was so beautiful. Life was so beautiful and so transcendent. And I just thought, whatever, it's like, I wanted to live so bad with every ounce of my being. I wanted to live. And of course, we all do. I've not met one person in the cancer center for all these years who didn't want to live with everything in their being. And that's why I feel so lucky. And one of the reasons I did the mission walk really was to scatter the ashes in a way, the emotional ashes of all the people that I have known and loved who 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 still walk with me in spirit, and they would be walking with me out on the mission trail. They'd be walking with me today, but they're no longer with us.
So you didn't have the idea of walking the missions before your diagnosis. This is something that kind of hit you as a revelation, if you will.
It hit me 6.5 years after my diagnosis. Yeah, because at my time of my diagnosis, the only thing you can think of is, my gosh, you're dying so fast. What can you do to save your life? And you have to get someone like Dr. Fisher, aggressive treatment. And people say, well, chemotherapy will kill you. Well, excuse me, chemotherapy might kill you, but cancer will kill you. And you don't have any time to delay or to deny. And so I took a very aggressive treatment, and I'd never been a walker to speak of. But I learned that once I got an infusion of chemotherapy, that the chemo was so toxic, it had to come into my body, it had to kill the cancer, and then I had to purge it out as fast as possible. How do you purge out toxic chemicals out of your body? Well, you sweat it out, pee it out. That's how you purge it out. And so I would get a chemotherapy infusion, and I only had like 48 hours with that next dextrose, that saline high, where I had any energy before it knocked me out, and I couldn't even crawl out of my bed. But for that first 48 hours, I could drink voluminous amounts of water. I could put on my headphones. I always like Elvis singing gospel. He's the number one gospel singer in the world for a reason. Okay, and I'd go out and I'd walk the canyons in San Diego, and actually I saw another mission bell at the very entry to Torrey Pines State Park, the canyon there, which is part of the mission trail, by the way. And I'd been walking it all these years and never even really realized it. But walking the canyon and sweating it out, pouring out the overflowings, if you will, that's helped get me through 832,000 milligrams of chemo. But my body was so broken at the end. But it wasn't just my body that was broken. My life was broken. I was emotionally broken. I was spiritually broken. And one of the things I've realized and learned in life is that life breaks us, every single one of us. But walking can heal us. Walking and around the block, and always feel that as a country, if we got out and walked more, we would love each other more. And one of the things, walking the old California Mission Trail, I got so close to the people who had walked there before, the past, the present, and you're even kind of in touch with the future when you're out there walking. It was and is a transcendent experience. And that's why now there are like 3,000 and 4,000 or 5,000 people part of the California Mission Walker organization. And that's why at any point in time, you're going to find many, many people now in California walking from San Diego to Sonoma. And if any of your listeners want an amazing experience, and a very well-mapped trail now, thanks to Butch Briery and the California Mission Hiker Guide, is you can get out and you can start walking, and you can walk all the way to Sonoma, and just following his directions.
So is that what you did? You decided to follow the guide and walk straight through all the way to Sonoma, or did you think about doing it in pieces? Tell us how you logistically did this. And of course, then we want to get to the whole adventure in Baja California.
Yes. Okay. So how it came about is I had, for 6.5 years, every 3 weeks, I had chemotherapy. And it just became a way of life. Even horrible things can become kind of a way of life. Oftentimes, I had a lot of surgeries, and I had 4 radical surgeries during that time. Every time I had a surgery, my husband and I would drive up the old El Camino Real, which is historic U.S. Highway 101. We'd drive up to go to Stanford, and 500 miles from San Diego, and that's where I would see the mission bells every mile. Every day with cancer is uncertain, because you never know if you're going to make it through that whatever's happening to you. And going up, every time we went up the old US Highway 101, old the El Camino Real, and we saw those roadside markers, I wanted to get out and hug everyone because I was still alive. And I was so joyous to be alive. And when your body is depleted, the only thing that is going to get you through is your spirit. So you have to keep your spirit elevated. And just the thought of hugging those bells got me to the hospital, got me into surgery, got me home, got me back in the canyon doing some walking, and then trying to deal with all the things that were happening to me because cancer attacked my feet. It absolutely, I just show you pictures of my feet that I had no skin left on the bottom of my feet. My skin was totally burned off my hands and my feet. I looked like a scarecrow because my hair looked like I'd been stuck. I'd stuck my hands in an electrical outlet. You're death. You're closer to death than to life. And there are many, many times in that 6.5 years I was closer to death than to life. But anyway, the very culmination, and I write about this in my book, The Mission Walker. The first 75 pages is what can you possibly do to kill cancer before it kills you? And so that's really the illness narrative is the first piece of The Mission Walker. And then the second piece is follow the bells. Follow the bells. And that's what I did when cancer came back again, and it kept coming back because that's what cancer does, late-stage cancer. It came back at one time, both in my liver and my lung at the same time, and 2 cavities. It was almost sure death. And I go extensively in the book on how I tried to deal with that. But needless to say, what happened is I was able to radiate the cancer that came back in the liver because I was missing so much liver, 60% of my liver that never grew back, and then which enabled them to go in and take out my right lung. So it was after they took out my right lung. And losing your lung, you lose your ability to breathe. You lose your ability to breathe. You lose your ability to move. And you've got to restore your body. And how do you do that? You do that through movement. Because like I said, your body's a healing machine, but it requires movement to do its job. And so I knew that the only way I was going to be able to heal from all of this 6.5 years was to do something dramatic, to do something. I had to do something to try to put my life back together, my body back together, my spirit back together. And what better thing to do than walk an old mission trail? And I didn't have to get on a plane and fly to Spain. I didn't have to get on a plane and fly to Jerusalem. I could, right just outside my door where I was walking, right on El Camino Real, I could walk from San Diego to Sonoma. And that's what I did. And it took me 55 days. It was a straight through walk. And I was very lucky because I got this idea going up to have my lung removed. And I just happened to, Google California Mission Trail. And I found out about Butch Briery and the fact that he and his wife, Sandy, had walked it. And so I connected with Butch Briery, and he said, Edie, we're going to be walking. And this is like in February. I just had my lung removed in September. This is February. And he said, Sandy and we're going to be speaking at the American Pilgrims, the Camino, because they'd walked Spain so many times. And he said, it's in Santa Barbara. So we're going to walk from San Diego to Santa Barbara on the California Mission Trail, which was what we've already done. But if you want to walk with us, be ready. And it was like next week. And I wasn't ready, but I got ready real fast because to have an opportunity to walk with someone like Butch Briery, it took all my fears away. I had such confidence in his ability and Sandy Briery's ability. And so one cold, wet, horrible morning on February 20th of 2013, we started walking, and there was a whole group of us walking because a whole bunch of people were going to this in Santa Barbara, the American Caminos, American Pilgrims of the Camino. And
so you're in San Diego. You start in San Diego.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I knew Butch was, he said, he said, Sandy and I are going to walk, and you're more than welcome to walk with us. But he said, I'll tell you what, I start walking every morning at 7:00, whether you're there or not. And he was absolutely remarkable because of the discipline of a long walk. And so we started walking. I never walked more than 4 miles in my entire life. And here I was going to walk 800 miles. But that's not the attitude you have. The attitude is, I'm going to walk one step at a time, one day at a time. And basically, God's going to decide how long and how far. And walking is such a metaphor for life, because isn't that true? God decides how long and how far. And so I had this opportunity to walk with Butch and Sandy, and we started out, we walked 20 days without stopping. We walked 296 miles without stopping every single day for 20 days. And here I only had the one lung. I had, just like there were days and there were mountains in between, San Diego and Santa Barbara. And it's like, and Butch, he was a fast walker and he never looked back, just like the vaqueros down in Mexico. They don't look back when you're walking, you look forward.
Because where were you sleeping?
Now, Butch and Sandy, they did have sleeping bags, and his hiker's guide has all the campgrounds, but he also has Motel 6s all along the way, too, that you can stay in a Motel 6. Now, I was lucky because a friend of mine, Ron Graham, who's a mathematician, he had a camper van that he and his wife had, but they never used it. It was called Q Random, because that's his mathematical theory, was Q Random. And I love that, being in a camper van called Q Random, because that's a mathematical theory that says, hey, everything's related. There is nothing random, does not really exist. And
wow.
Yeah, and this is all in the book. And so it's like Q Random. And so a friend drove the camper van for me for at least the first half of the trip. And then my husband was able to join me for part of it. But so I had a camper van because I had just had my right lung removed 5 months before. And how they remove your lung, Damien, is they cut you from the center of your breastbone all the way back to almost to your spine. They take those ribs and they pull them apart to get your lung out. And then you have a bronchial stump. So they take your shoulder muscle and cover the bronchial stump. But what happens is so many nerve endings are torn that you always have nerve pain. And not have a backpack. I can't have more than 5 pounds. And so I was so lucky that Ron Graham loaned me his camper van. And so I would walk, and it got to the point even the first 4 or 5 days that Butch and Sandy had their backpacks on. They were camping. But before you know it, they had their backpacks in the camper van, and we were using the camper van even to transport their tents and things. But they always slept outside. They never slept inside. They were such an enormous inspiration to me. And at night even, because I just had my lung removed and I had a lot of fluid in my chest, I could never sleep laying down. I had to sleep upright because of all the fluid. Otherwise, it almost choked night. And so all those things, you just accommodate. You accommodate when you're out there. And it was just phenomenal. We made it, Butch and Sandy and I. And by the way, the people who started walking with us, they decided they didn't want to follow Butch and his hiking trail because a lot of it was concrete and pavement. And they decided they wanted to go and actually, kind of be their own adventurer. And none of them made it. So I learned, one of the first things I learned in a walk is one of the scariest things to a walker is, I know a shortcut. And that's life too. Anyone who tells you, I know a shortcut, do not listen to them. Do not listen to them. Shortcuts
make long delays.
Find someone who knows what they're doing, like Butch Bride, The Hiker's Guide, who's done it. Find someone who's survived stage 4 cancer. Find a doctor who has a person or two who has survived. Find someone who's done it, because all of life, Damien, is a formula. Find the formula and just do it. It's like Ecclesiastes reminds us, there's nothing new under the sun. None of this is new. Walking.
Right.
Hippocrates knew it was the best medicine. Duh. So we just keep reinventing the same thing over and over and over again. So, yeah. So the message out there is find someone's footsteps that you can follow, and where you find your inspiration, where you find your joy, where you find your peace, and start walking.
So from Santa Barbara, how did you make it to Sonoma? Did you keep going, or did you double back and start again?
That was 296 miles. And that was only like 1/3 the distance.
Right.
But I had the confidence that I could do it. I mean, the first 300 miles, although it took about 500 or 600 miles for my feet to stop hurting, and for my lung to stop hurting, and for me to be able to breathe normally. But at 300 miles of walking, 20 days straight, my hips were strong, my glutes were strong, my ankles were somewhat strong, but it was my faith that was strong. I figured, hey, I can do this. I can do this, because Butch did have he had a hiker's guide, his own just sheets of paper. It wasn't even a bound book. He had sheets of paper. So I had a copy of it, and every day I just tore off a page. I followed the page and tore it off. And one of the things you realize when you're on a long walk, Damien, when you're out there walking a mission trail, is throw your iPhone away. Throw away GPS. GPS does not work. And even Google knows this. Google has a team called Ground Truth. Ground Truth. Now, why do they call it Ground Truth? Because what's on the ground is different from what GPS may show you. Because, like with all big data, with AI data, that's what was, not what is. And as a walker, you're out there right now today. What's the weather doing? What disruptions are happening? Traffic disruption. You're out there. And tides, I mean, you're walking on the California coast, you're walking across the mountains, you're doing all this stuff. So ground truth is what's happening right in front of you. Now, down in Mexico, the Mission Trail, there are no cell phones, period. You have to rely on a paper map. But I'll just tell you, I will never do a walk. A long walk, and to me, a long walk is anything 100, 200 miles. I will never do a long walk without a piece of paper.
So all right, so GPS doesn't work. Map, you need a map, but of course a map isn't updated to the moment. Is it just a matter of just being flexible and prepared for whatever you happen to encounter? Is that it?
Yes. Every walk is a walk of faith. And one of the things that happened with cancer with me is a life with cancer is a life of uncertainty. You get kind of comfortable with uncertainty. And uncertainty is fearful from oftentimes, but you get more comfortable with it. And you also get more comfortable with fear. And one of the things you realize, because you're in emergency rooms and so much and everything, you realize that fear is not in the moment. Fear is almost always in the mind. And so one of the things about walking is movement itself helps us deal with fear. And so from Santa Barbara to Sonoma, it was a walk of faith. It was one step at a time. And I truly never knew when I started out in the morning if I was going to even make it a mile. And even today, when I start out, I don't know how long I'm going to make it. I kind of start each day with this prayer is, Lord, have mercy on me. And then I end the day with, Lord, thank you.
Right.
You know?
Wow. So then how many months or weeks did it take to finish that whole route to Sonoma?
And I want to tell you, it took me 55 days to follow San Diego to Sonoma, walking on average 15 miles a day.
Okay.
And the way I did that is I was so, God told Job, pour out thy overflowings, pour out thy overflowings. And for Job, God was saying anger. My overflowings was this cancer stuff I was overwhelmed. And so I had to pour out those overflowing. And the way I poured out those overflowings on the walk was to just feel with grace and not have any sound at all. I've never walked 1 block or 1 mile with anything in my ears, ever, ever. And walked the California Mission Trail from San Diego to Sonoma. There are 21 missions. So you're not walking 800 miles. You're walking from mission to mission.
Mm-hmm.
And the Franciscans in those missions, 3 of them are not active parish churches. The rest of them are active parish churches with Franciscans still there. And the Franciscans today treat you like they did 300 years ago. And that is, you arrive at a mission, they ask you if you're thirsty, if you're hungry, and oftentimes they'll ask you if you need a place to stay that night. They've been treating pilgrims like that, and they treat pilgrims like that everywhere, whether it's in Europe or it's California, whether it's in San Diego or Sonoma or Santa Barbara. They welcome you with loving arms. And wherever you are in life, actually, people welcome you with loving arms. I don't know why we're so afraid of, it's like people are afraid to walk around their neighborhood. Right now I'm walking across the United States. I've walked 1,400 miles, about 1,800 miles from Pensacola. And I just finished walking across Texas to El Paso. And I've never had anything but goodness and kindness. When I walked that 1,600 miles from Loretto, and from Loretto, to the California border, um, by myself and a pag mule, not speaking much Spanish, and we'll talk about that. But the kind of love I received from the people there was just overwhelming. And the same thing when I walked from San Diego to Sonoma. The amount of love that I received was just overwhelming.
Sounds to me like doing the walk, contrary to what you might think, instead of getting you into your thoughts and your mindset, it seems like it connected you more to the reality outside of your head, right?
Yes. Damien, I'm so glad you said that. Yes. We think of mindfulness, we're kind of sold on that mindfulness is sitting and going, mindfulness is like in here. No, mindfulness is, wow. Mindfulness is getting outside your emotional self, connecting with something so much bigger. And how do you do that? You don't do that inside, and you certainly don't do it on this little bitty screen. No, you have to get outside. And when you're outside, you automatically look at the heavens. Automatically outside, you realize how small you are and how vast life and everything is and how small we are. But that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. We're part of a bigger whole. And you realize also that other people have come before you, and you realize that your feet that hurt, you realize that the thirst you feel from dehydration, you realize thousands of people have felt that on this very dirt that you're walking today. That it's empathy. It's what you talked about on your website for your podcast for the California Frontier Project. You wanted 3 things: context, an understanding of context, complexity, and empathy.
Right.
And I tell you, Damien, They should be listening to your podcast, but when they're not listening to the podcast, get out there and start walking the California Mission Trail.
Exactly. Can we jump back a little bit? You mentioned that at a certain point, your lung pain stopped. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Lung pain is because you can't take a deep breath. It hurts so bad. And so immediately from San Diego to even Los Angeles, you've got 2 or 3 mountains that you go over. And outside of Los Angeles, there was a mountain, a pass called Santa Susanna Pass. And it was so terrifying that back in the days of the stagecoach and they had to blindfold the mules and the horses because it was so steep that the animals would not go down. And by the way, I encountered this in Mexico, and the vaqueros had to do the same thing. You have to blindfold the animal. And that was so steep that I really, really, really thought I was never going to make it. I couldn't take a breath deep enough to accelerate. But one thing I'd learned in cancer is when you think you can't go on, you can. When you think you can't go on, you can. And I've had a lot of experiences in my life. Like when I was 17, making money for college, I sold books door to door, Jackson, Tennessee, although I was raised on a farm in Oklahoma. And I had to knock on doors and sell these books. And sometimes I didn't think I could knock on another door, but I realized that I could. And it's like I realized going up that mountain, Santa Susanna Pass. And the mantra that I had is, I can, I will, I'm going to. I can, I will, I'm going to. And your footsteps become shorter. They become slower, but all you have to do is just inch forward. And one thing you realize is when you get to the top of one mountain, there's always another mountain in front of you. But I can, I will, I'm going to. So it's old Santa Susanna Pass that I lost my breath completely. And I was with Butch and Sandy at the time. Okay. So I had, they were ahead of me, but I had them. And I also had Deb Dolly, my friend who was driving the camper van. So even I passed out. And the problem there is guys on motorcycles love coming down there, and bicycles love coming down there. And you're walking up, and they love coming.
But you passed out?
So you can be hit, just if you're not very, very attentive. And so, yeah. And so I was able to do that. I was able to do Santa Susanna Pass, which is, there's a 95% grade. And it's like, I made it to the top. After that, I felt like I could just do anything. I could do anything, any mountain. Walking slows us down, slows life down. The lessons it teaches us, but it empowers us. It empowers us. And that California Mission Trail, I know of no one who's walked it, whether they've walked 5 miles of it, 10 miles of it, 20 miles of it, who have not come away stronger and empowered in some way. Because that's what walking, especially a mission trail, does for us.
Well, I don't doubt it. And I think it's a dream of so many people, myself included, to do that, to walk the Mission Trail in California, especially because it almost covers most of the state, leaving out, a good chunk in the far north. And it's some of the most beautiful landscape in the country, right?
From San Diego to Los Angeles, I call it the Broadway of beauty. A Broadway of beauty. You're literally on the coast. It just takes your breath away, the beauty of it. And you made a very interesting observation, Damien, and that is that the California Mission Trail defines California.
It does.
People don't realize that in a period of 3 months, just about everything in California, every river, creek, mountain, and town, Los Angeles, was given its name. 1769, in 3 months. It was a saint's day when they arrived, and so the Spanish celebrated Saint's Day by, having a mass and naming where they were after the saint. And so, isn't it remarkable that from San Diego to San Francisco to, Monterey, that just about everything was defined in a 3-month period. And
Well, one of the things I love doing is oftentimes when you're in a place in California that doesn't have a Spanish name, if you dig a little bit, you'll find it, right? You'll find either the rancho or that the city was founded on, or the original name of the city. For example, I grew up near Concord, California, which is in the East Bay. Well, that was only named Concord in 1911. It was Todos Santos, All Saints, until then, right? So there's a whole other layer. And of course, if you want to go back, even my good friend Eric Plunkett, who goes around and finds all the native villages in Orange County, and finds even earlier. So that's wonderful. That ends the first half of my interview with Edie Littlefield Sundby. Stay tuned for the second half, where we talk about her voyage in Baja California. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the California Frontier Show. If you'd like to support the show, the best thing to do is to let other people know about it. If you'd like to support it monetarily, there are a couple ways of doing that. One is by scrolling down in your podcast app to where it says support the show. There you can become a subscriber for as little as $3 a month. And if you want to give a one-time donation, just below you'll see where it says give a one-time donation. Finally, the show is supported by California History Teachers, which is a full year of lessons for 4th grade California history and social studies. You can find out more at www.californiahistoryteachers.com. And if you input the coupon code PODCAST, you'll receive 25% off your monthly or annual subscription. So check it out.